There we go. When Team A presents a punt, field goal, or try kick formation, a Team B player who is within 1 yard of the line of scrimmage must have his entire body outside of the snapper's shoulder pads at the snap. All right, so I guess we'll show that play one more time. But Skip,
I'm sure we're going to be showing it a whole lot.
Yeah, you actually, with that keen eye of yours, brought that to our attention. Tell us, do you think that the officials cost the Jets the game?
It was actually our researcher, Evan, but I'm taking no credit for it. Yes, way to go, Evan. He found the story. Stephen A. Smith, obviously, I was rooting for the New England Patriots last night. But I must admit to you here today that the New York Jets got robbed by what that referee did before that snap on the final field goal that got blocked. I thought that referee was completely out of line, Stephen A. Smith, to save Dante Hightower from himself. That is not the ref's job the way I would see it, and I have been covering this sport, as you know, since the early 1970s, and I have never seen anything quite like this. If Dante Hightower wants to line up illegally straight over the snapper, that's what he should have the right to do. And it should be the ref's job merely to throw a flag for a 5-yard penalty that would have given Nick Folk a second chance from 53 yards. And I have no idea if Nick Folk would have made that field goal, but I would have given him a lot better chance from 53 than I would have given him from 58. This should have been shades of what happened last year at the Jets. You recall what Chris Jones did then. I thought that was a bogus penalty. I did not think he achieved some unfair leverage, and that's a 15-yard obscure penalty that got called on the Jets after Nick Folk had missed from 56 yards. Well, obviously, if you do a 15-yard penalty, he's going to make it from 41 yards. But in this case, the ref should have stood by and let Hightower do whatever he wanted to do. And I'm just guessing on this part, Stephen A., but obviously he was subbing in. He'd just come off injury and was in the lineup for Gerard Mayo. Well, I'm not sure if that's Mayo's slot on that special team, on the field goal block team, but whatever, Hightower was not coached very well, or Hightower didn't listen in the meetings very well because he did not know the rule. And it's not up to the ref to save him from himself by reaching out and grabbing him and pulling out of harm's way where he could have gotten a 5-yard flag. I'm going to guess that today that referee, and I'm having a hard time because we can't identify him off the film, it's just too obscure which number it was, but I'm going to assume he could be in some hot water today with his superiors.
Well, I would appreciate it if on a Friday leading into an NFL Sunday weekend and a big-time college football weekend, no one's wasting my time with questions like this. The fact of the matter is you're right that the referee did not do his job or he did his job wrongly. Who cares? It happens. There are mistakes by official in every single game. It does not negate the fact that the Jets had 4 opportunities in the first half. Their first 4 drives ended up in field goals. Geno Smith, despite how well he played last night, mistake-free, arguably the cleanest game he played in a very long time, still was not able to get them in the end zone. They had to settle for field goals during that particular moment in time. It still doesn't negate the fact that the Jets, who rushed for over 200 yards, still managed to not convert on a 2-point conversion because Geno Smith couldn't hook up with Amaro adroitly enough. It still doesn't negate the fact that despite the Jets sitting there and playing an incredibly more impressive game than I ever anticipated that they'd play, with Geno Smith again playing a clean game, with the rushing attack led by Chris Ivory rushing for 107 yards, with them combining with him, with Johnson, with Geno Smith for over 200 yards rushing, with Eric Decker there being a sighting, with him having 4 receptions for 65 yards, and still including a big-time 24-yard pass from Geno Smith to him. It doesn't negate the fact that despite all those things the Jets did, they were still in a position where they needed a field goal in order to win this game, and it had to be from 58 yards. That's the bottom line to me. The official making the mistake, I'm not going to argue with that. Clearly, he was wrong. And I think that when they look at the film, you're right. Some of his superiors may hold him accountable. He could be in some hot water because it's not his job to sit there and try to correct the player before Dante Hightower before the play was actually executed. You're right about that. But in the grand scheme of things, as a native New Yorker who's still waiting for the Jets to get back to a Super Bowl since 1969, who has witnessed their level of ineptitude year after year after year, decade after decade after decade, it's 40-something years, 45 years and counting. I'm sorry. I'm not going to look at this and make the big deal out of it that you're making it. It was a mistake. The official was wrong. You're absolutely right. But in terms of it being a big deal, something of significance to me doesn't even compare to what I saw from the Jets. They played a good game. They should have won, and they still managed to lose the game.
You're saying I'm wasting your time with a play that's going to be the talk of not only the town of New York today, but the National Football League, and you're saying it was irrelevant to what happened? That is insane, my friend.
No. Let me be clear. Let me be clear. New Yorkers, and I'm in New York today, okay? New Yorkers are not sitting here talking about that play. They're going to recognize it.
They will be, trust me,
about how
once they hear about it.
I promise you they won't. Well, I promise you they won't. You know why, Skip? Because it's the Jets. Because it's the Jets. That's why.
I know it's the Jets and the Patriots, Stephen A., and it's the flip of what happened last year when Chris Jones got called for it. Then he blocks the field goal, yet his teammate this time should have been called for a penalty because that's not the ref's job.
Stick around,
have you ever seen this in all your years watching football? Have you ever seen a ref correct a player?
You're right.
The only thing I ever see is when wide receivers line up, they look to the ref to their right or their left and say, am I okay? Am I okay? But they're asking for permission. They're asking for him to say, hey, you're a fraction over the line, and that's okay. But Hightower didn't turn to that referee and say, can I do this? Am I okay here?
Time out. Dean Blandino, and the producer just sent this to me in my ear. The Dean Blandino, the vice president of officiating for the NFL, in regards to this play, said in the Jets-Pats game, that is a standard officiating mechanic, no different than pointing out the line of scrimmage to a wideout. Player safety rule and umpire will remind players to stay off the center before the snap.
Okay, but there's one thing you could, I don't know if you remind them, he reached out and grabbed him and pulled him out of a penalty. That is out of bounds. That is not the referee's duty. That is not his job description before a play. And trust me, Rex Ryan and company are going to be furious about this because again, that is the coach's responsibility and ultimately the player's responsibility to know better. That's a simple rule. I didn't know about that leverage penalty that Chris Jones got called for because that was obscure. This is not obscure.
Well, it's not obscure, and I think what you're misunderstanding is that nobody's in a position to disagree with you, Skip. I haven't seen that before. I haven't seen a referee correct a play or prevent a player from making a mistake where he could be penalized and it could work to the benefit of the opposition. You have a valid point, and I think that we have to wait and see what the league office has to say, what the officiating department for the NFL has to say about this, and we'll go from there. But what I'm challenging you on is that we're talking about the New York Jets here. And when you have their history of ineptitude and you're having the season that they're having, I'm telling you right now, New Yorkers and New York Jet fans are going to look at this as just the latest in a string of stuff that has happened. Either it's their ineptitude or it's bad luck or it's the combination of the two that leaves this franchise as the mediocre bunch they have perpetually been for the most part over decades. I'm telling you right now, the frustration is too great for people to look at this play and make a big deal out of it to the point where they're saying, oh, we could have won the game. They're going to sit there and go like this. It would only happen to the Jets. If this were New England or somebody else, you're right, it would be more noise. But because it's the Jets, I respectfully disagree with you. People are going to look at it and they're going to say, them damn Jets, finding different ways to lose. Nothing goes their way. Nothing goes their way.
All right, well, listen, the Jets lost 6 straight games. Again, 1-6, longest losing streak under Rex Ryan. But let's talk about their overall performance.